Hey guys, Argent here. So, I've been pretty depressed lately, largely because of my unending job search. I passed, I think it's 400 or 500 applications this week. And I get some interviews, but it's not going great. Job market in the GTA isn't particularly good. Looking at the rest of Canada, but it's hard to get them to consider you seriously when you don't live there. It's not exactly easy to pick up and move to the other side of the country and then try to get a job after you've moved there. Anyways, I won't go into detail about that now. I just figured, why not share my misery? We're gonna have a quest. I figure I'll share my misery and my sorrow with you. And we will have depression. We will go on a quest to hopefully cure our depression or make it worse and make us want to blow our brains out with Depression Quest. So, let's see here. Its emotional character is probably mostly indescribable, except as a sort of double-blinded which all of the alternatives we associate with human agency, sitting or standing, doing or resting, speaking or keeping silent, living or dying, are just unpleasant but literally horrible. Maybe that's in reference to depression, I don't know. Depression Quest is a game that deals with living with depression in a very literal way. God, don't I know about that. This game is not meant to be a fun or lighthearted experience. Good. If you are currently suffering from the illness and are easily triggered, I'm not easily triggered, I am suffering from the illness. Please be aware that the game uses stark depictions of people in very dark places. I've been desensitized. I've been suicidal in numerous parts of my life. I went to the emergency room once. It's pretty hard to trigger me. You can only want to kill yourself so many times before it just stops really being an issue. If you are suicidal, please stop playing this game and visit the suicide prevention hotline to talk to someone. I've never looked at it. The general problem with stuff like that is most of the people who it's there to help have severe social anxiety. And the thought of having to call the line and explain to someone how fucked up you are just makes you want to kill yourself more. So the goal of this game is twofold. Firstly, we want to illustrate as clearly as possible what depression is like, so that it may be better understood by people without depression. Hopefully this can be something to spread awareness and fight against the social stigma, misunderstandings that depression sufferers face. Yes, I actually think there is a lot of social stigma. I know I got criticized very strongly in a lot of my jobs for not being sufficiently cheerful. I was a good employee. I actually got awards in most of the places I've worked for working hard, working efficiently, and working well. But I'm kind of gloomy. I know when I'm manic, I'm kind of a bit less gloomy, but yeah. Secondly, our hope is that in presenting as real a simulation of depression as possible, other sufferers will come to know they aren't alone and hopefully derive some measure of comfort from that. That actually does help a lot. It makes you feel like less of a loser. It's a bit like why people like Chris Chan so much. Because Chris Chan makes you feel better about yourself. Because you go, as much of a fuck up as I am, I can never be as much of a freak as this asshole. Okay. It goes without saying that because of the very nature of depression, it is experienced differently by every person who suffers from it. We aren't trying to say that this is the best or most accurate representation, merely that it is an amalgamation of the experiences of the developers and several people close to them. Many of the following encounters deal with the issues such as therapy, medication, handling a love life, and reaching out to support networks. In reality, less than half of depression sufferers actually seek treatment for reasons such as lack of money. That's actually a big one. People think Canada has universal health care. It really doesn't. My current medication costs about $140 a month because the government of Canada blocks generic drugs that you have in America. It's bad. I mean, it's if you want a psychologist, that's $200 an hour. Keep in mind that minimum wage. Oh, but people don't live on minimum wage. Okay, but at minimum wage, that's half your weekly pay. People can't afford it. You can't afford it unless you have health insurance. And if you have health insurance, it only covers half of it, which is still prohibitively expensive. The government provides some services, but it's a joke. It's like 2 years for like one appointment. Okay. So let's see. Lack of money, yes. Perceived personal failing, that's a big one. Or public stigma, that's also a big one. A lot of it's pretty common in my experience for companies to discriminate against you if you have a mental illness. They don't directly do it, but they go, "Oh, your disposition isn't sufficiently cheerful." A lot of companies I find hate introverted people, and they will not hire you if they think you're quiet or introverted. These things and that's not my opinion. You can look at recruiting sites. You can look at what people write in like the Wall Street Journal and shit like that. These things were included in order to touch upon as broad a range as possible, since all of these elements can be very important to the sufferers of depression, though they will likely not be the experience of most sufferers. I think they are experience of most sufferers. Important to recognize that not everyone with depression is so lucky. Many people with the illness don't have a lot of luxuries that we have in this game. We've written it this way so that we can specifically focus on the illness, which becomes more and more difficult to deal with as the person who has it is less and less well off. That's true. My family's not poor. It's not like I can't afford medication, but it's pretty depressing when, in part, companies won't hire you because you're not significantly cheerful enough. I don't know. I don't want this to be me just complaining about my life, but I remember when I used to have a job, I would work through lunches, I'd work overtime, I just would get things done faster than everyone else, but I didn't want to go for like 3-hour lunch breaks with everybody else. I had a life outside of it. I didn't want to make my job my life, and because of that was a reason they didn't hire me long term. Okay. Play with the sound on. Okay, I'm going to put the sound back on. This could be bad. The reason the sound is off is because YouTube has this stupid copyright system that flags everything if there's any background noise. So let's see here. The sound doesn't seem to be coming back on. There we go. Just turn that down a bit. Hopefully this song's in the public domain. No, it's really annoying because I can post the entire footage of a game and it won't be flagged, but if I do anything else it will be. Okay, well that's pretty straightforward. I don't really think I need to look at that. It's kind of like a visual novel. Begin. It is early on a Monday morning. You are a mid-20s human being. You have a significant other named Alex, who you are rather fond of. I guess Alex because let's see. Oh, okay. You met Alex through a mutual friend a few months back. The two of you hit it off pretty well that first night, and after a couple series of awkward dates, you finally became a couple, much to your surprise and excitement. Alex is 3 months younger than you are, and is currently a student with a part-time job and broad social circle. She's also got a wide variety of interests. Okay, so you're male in this game. Okay, that's good. She also's got a wide variety of interests, and oftentimes you worry that you might be too boring for her. Yeah, that's what I always worry about if I was to get into a relationship. But she has been good at trying to reassure you that she's happy with you. Your relationship consists of a lot of nights in watching Netflix when you both got time off work and she doesn't have classes. with the occasional social outing that she tends to have to talk you into attending. She tries to be understanding when you are in one of your moods, as she puts it, though you are starting to feel she doesn't understand what it's like to be you, and this is a source of tension in your relationship. Coupled with your reluctance to want to go to college parties, this feeds your worries that you're not being exciting enough for them. Yeah, that's 100% accurate. That's kind of what I'd probably do if I was in a relationship. I just don't like parties. I just don't. I never partied when I was in college. I had friends, and I'd go and hang out with them. It's not like I was a complete hermit. I just don't like parties. They're loud, and they cause anxiety. That you've been seeing exclusive. I hate the term significant other. I'm just going to replace it. It's some social justice warrior bullshit. You have a girlfriend named Alex, who you are rather fond of, that you have been seeing exclusively for the past few months. The rest of your social circle is made up of a few close friends, some of which you've known from high school, and some from jobs that you've worked. I'm just going to scan through this. You also have several online friends that you talk to regularly. I know I do. That you feel less guarded with, possibly due to communicating from the safety of being behind the keyboard. You enjoy the low commitment of the friendships, since they don't expect very much of you other than to listen and share personal thoughts and experiences. Despite the low commitment, you feel fairly connected with these people and tend to be more honest with them than people you interact with in real life. I don't know. People always disparage having online friends. I find they've been immensely helpful for me. I wouldn't say it's low commitment. A lot of people you meet online have a lot of problems and issues of their own. And it can be pretty intense and pretty intensive to try to help them. To try to support each other. I don't know. Like I have a couple friends. If Czar and I lived in the same side of the continent, I'd hang out with him. Just a little shout out, Czar. Okay, so yes. You feel incredibly nervous trying to make new friends on your own, and are very good at talking yourself out of going to unfamiliar places or larger social engagements regardless of intent. See, for me, I go through different periods. I don't know. I sometimes want to. I generally just don't want to go to them. I generally just don't have a desire to be around people. Meeting new people stresses you out to a high degree, and that is something you wish you could work past. It used to. It doesn't really anymore. I just don't care. I just kind of feel indifferent. Let's see here. You occasionally give up trying to maintain. You occasionally just don't speak to people you know you should, and give up trying to maintain relationships with them. You feel incredibly guilty about this, but are not quite sure how to change. That's somewhat true. I generally speaking, yeah, that happens sometimes. Generally speaking, though, that's evidence of a bigger problem. If I actually like the person and we're having a decent relationship, I will talk to them pretty often. Most of the people I fell out of touch with were people who couldn't accept things about me. They couldn't accept my religion, for instance. Okay. You'd like to be doing more in your... let's see here. Your social circle consists of friends and acquaintances, some of whom you met at your day job. What is my day job? Let's see. Day job, which you feel is really nothing special. You start out receiving minimum wage, but have stayed around long enough to be making enough to support yourself. The work is dull and unrewarding, and most days you feel like just about anyone could do it. That's bad, but I don't know, you're being paid more than minimum wage, which is more than most people who have severe depression could say. You have a hard time relating to most of your coworkers, so you mostly keep to yourself and get the work done while you're there. There are one or two people you chat with, though you wouldn't consider yourself close with them. Yeah, that sums up how work generally is. A lot of days lately you have a really hard time getting out of bed and forcing yourself to go in. You're starting to wonder how long you can keep this up. You feel like you'd really like to find another job in your field of interest, but feel like you are underqualified every time you look at online job postings. Yep, online job postings are fucking Satan's spawn. Online job postings kind of are like a window into hell, with the HR bitches as kind of being the devil. But you feel like you're underqualified every time you look at online job postings. Sometimes you think about going back to school, but you're unsure how you would be able to support yourself, and wonder if the degree would really help anyways. Exactly. Wow, this is like reading my mind. This is pretty much dead on. You'd like to be able to do more with your life as would your parents. Let's see here. You're one of the few people you know of whose parents never got divorced, but you do wonder if they still love each other sometimes. Holy shit, this is like reading my mind. You have an older brother named Malcolm who has moved across the country with his wife to work a high-paying job. Every major holiday that you see him at, you feel a bit jealous and like the lesser kid, despite being generally happy to see him. My sister's kind of in a similar situation as me. Your parents genuinely care about you. This often involves inviting you back to your childhood home for dinner. Well, I live with my parents, and I don't have a girlfriend, so and I don't have a job, so this person's actually significantly ahead of in life than me. They don't understand me. Yes, that's true. They want you to succeed and don't know why you haven't gone further in life yet because you're so smart and talented. Exactly. Actually, generally speaking, mental illness is normally correlated with high IQ, particularly things like depression. That's a disturbing picture. Okay. Anytime you've tried to talk to them about your motivation issues, they tell you the solution is simply to work harder or want it more. Yep, exactly. Your father is generally more forgiving of your lack of career path. Yes, men I find generally are. I think that's kind of one of the things with just the feminization of society. I know if I go to an interview and I talk to a male, they're generally like a lot more laid back and understanding, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. And they're just like, they're willing to accept mistakes. Women I find aren't. Which is kind of where the whole HR bitch thing came from. Let's see here. Your father, okay. You know they love you and that they're not bad people, but you really feel like a big disappointment sometimes and you forget about it for a while. You're also dealing with motivation issues that sometimes makes dealing with these things difficult. You feel like this is probably your fault, and on bad days you can feel inwardly angry and down on yourself for being lazy, but you're not quite sure how you could break out of it, or how other people deal with these feelings and seem so very functional. You spend a lot of nights fixated on thinking about this, but never seem to do anything about it other than lose sleep. I actually do spend a lot of time on it, it just never really goes anywhere. It's an unseasonably warm Wednesday evening. Well, it's Monday when I'm recording this. You've spent the past several hours at work. The past week or so, you found your job motivation flagging more so than usual. I felt my job search motivation like that. You've been in a fog particularly all day today, simply going through the motions without realizing even what you've been doing half the time. And yet time seems to be moving at half speed. You're so checked out that when your boss approaches to tell you that it's dead and you can go home early, it barely registers. As you walk home, the streets hiss from the recent rainfall. You know that your significant other will be your girlfriend will be in classes until late. Another couple hours at least. You briefly consider using this serendipitous solitude to catch up on that project that you've been working haphazardly for the past few months. Let's see, project. So basically, this is just a project you have on the side that you basically this is about someone suggested to you to start a project to keep your motivation up and to distract you from how bad your life is and how incapable you are of dealing with your life, to help you better cope with the shittiness of your 9 to 5. I wonder, like, what kind of thing this could be. For me, it's writing and this YouTube channel. Yeah, so this is basically just saying that it is helpful, at least initially, but even though you're passionate about it, lately you find it hard to muster the energy to really even care about your project. So this is just a generic project, but most people with depression have something like it. As soon as you think about the work that awaits you at home, you can feel the panic creeping in from the back of your brain unbidden. All you can think about is how incredibly far behind you are, and the amount of work seems nothing less than insurmountable. Yep, I feel that way every day about everything. That doesn't mean I don't work, but, yeah. By the time you arrive home and change out of your uncomfortable work clothes, the stress is weighing down on you like a heavy, wet wool blanket. Your computer seems to be staring you down for your desk. You want to sit down and work, but the mere thought of work sends your stress levels flying. More than anything, you feel suddenly and absolutely exhausted and feel strong desire to simply hide in bed. See, I don't get that way. I just obsessively work. I just obsessively work on whatever it is I'm on, which is why I produce so many YouTube videos. Because I kind of find just doing something, anything, distracts me from how shitty my life is. So I'll just go make a video, or I'll go write a couple pages of my book, or I'll go do some job applications, or I'll go study some stats, or study something else, or go for a walk and get some exercise, or go cook something. I'll try to go do something productive. I do feel very tired a lot of the time, but overall I think I try to deal with it better. Okay, so some other stuff. You are depressed. Interacting is exhausting. You're ultimately becoming more and more withdrawn. You're not seeing a therapist. You're not taking any medication for depression. So my options are not to order some food, grab a drink, and hunker down for a night of work. That makes sense. You're too depressed for that. Reluctantly sit down at your desk and try to make yourself do something. Turn on the TV, telling yourself you just need a quick half hour to unwind from work. Crawl into bed. What would I do? Probably this one. That's generally how I deal with it. Make a stop at your fridge, turn your favorite playlist on, and sit down to start working. You open the last file you were working on, and as soon as your hands touch the keyboard, your mind goes blank. All of the motivation and ideas you had when you arrived home vanish in a flash. Your brain seizes up and you find yourself physically incapable of any sort of productive thought. You take a break to loosen up, popping into your inbox, Twitter, and various other internet-based distraction fodder. Generally speaking, I go on Facebook, which actually does help because I get social interaction through it, and I have friends on there that I can talk to, and that actually does help me. Frustratingly, this pattern continues throughout the course of the evening. As soon as you try to focus on work, your brain diverts all its energy away from the task at hand. While you keep flipping back to your work, you find the sheer mental effort involved in keeping your brain focused is overwhelming and tiring. A few Twitter arguments, YouTube videos, and sparse amounts of actual work later, your playlist flips back to track 1, and the ice in your glass has all but melted, diluting the last dregs of the coke you were nursing. You look at the clock and realize that a few hours have passed since you sat down to work, and you've made negligible progress. I can just wake up early tomorrow and catch up, you think to yourself as you climb into bed, even though that never actually happens. That never actually happens for me because I have bipolar and sleeping is very difficult. I generally find I go into manic mode sometimes before bed. So you are very depressed, you spend a large amount of time sleeping, hanging yourself, and have very little motivation, etc. And we'll click next in a second. Okay, so let's see here. Hit the next button. It's a mild Friday afternoon. Your girlfriend calls you from one of her classes telling you that there's going to be a really awesome birthday party tonight at her apartment, that one of her roommates is throwing. You've hung out with this roommate a few times with Alex, and you get along well enough but you aren't particularly close. You don't have work in the morning and have nothing else in particular to do tonight. You're feeling kind of run down lately, but you're feeling kind of run down, but you have been fatigued most of the time lately. Yeah, that's how it works. You just kind of feel sick. I frequently think I have a cold or some other form of illness, just because of how shitty depression feels. You mentioned that you're feeling ill because you're not sure how to explain these feelings to someone else, and say that you aren't sure if you can make it tonight. There's a second of silence over your phone, but you swear you can hear the sound of your partner's face fall. She tries to convince you anyway. You haven't seen her this week, and she sounds pretty insistent that your girlfriend this week, pretty insistent that you come over. She even drops a few suggestively worded hints that you could stay over with them tonight after the party. What do you do? I guess try to go. It's only a birthday party. Hopefully it's not like super bad. You agree to go even though you're not really feeling social. You know it's important to Alex and you'd really like to see her. Seeing her does make you feel better sometimes, and you hope that this is the case tonight, even if it means dealing with social anxiety. The time to leave rolls around and you grab your bag. Alex's apartment is a short walk away, and there are already people hanging out on the porch. You feel your chest tighten as you approach the building and try to steal your nerves. You quickly find your girlfriend chatting away with the birthday girl. Alex immediately lightens up when she sees you. I'm so happy you came. I wasn't sure if you were going to make it. A young man taps her on the shoulder and she turns back to you to apologize and let you know they have something to do for the party. Alex hands you a beer and plants a kiss on your cheek before going off to deal with whatever came up. As you look around, you don't see anyone else you recognize. Let's see here. So that's kind of good. I mean, you have a girlfriend. That's pretty nice. So what would I do? Probably clink the back wall, sip my beer, wait for my girlfriend to return. That sounds like what I would do. As Alex leaves, you're not quite sure what to do with yourself. Standing in the middle of the room leaves you feeling kind of exposed, and you don't feel ballsy enough to randomly approach any of the groups of people clustered together talking. You head to a clear spot on the back wall and lean against it. For some reason, this always feels a lot more secure. Yep, it does for me too. You scan the party for a familiar face or any sign of your girlfriend, and come up with nothing. Not sure what else to do, and worrying that you must look creepy just standing there watching everyone, you take out your phone to busy yourself. That's exactly what I do. 20 semi-tedious games of Bejeweled Blitz later, your partner returns. You spend the rest of the night with Alex, occasionally being introduced to people and nodding along with the group conversations, even if you don't participate that much. At the end of the night, as you're falling asleep with your girlfriend in the crock of your arm, she thanks you again for coming. Half drunk, she confides that she thought you were going to flake out and was pleasantly surprised that you managed to come out. She says it lovingly, but you're not quite sure how you feel about this statement. I don't know. If you're depressed and you feel your life is worthless, I guess the least you can do is try to serve the people who are important to you and care about you. Even if you feel like doing yourself in, you can at least try to do it for other people. At least try to serve the other people in your life, because I mean it's going to be shitty no matter what you do, but it matters to others. Your girlfriend seems to care about you, and it's not like your life has any value. It's a little afternoon on a muggy Sunday. Your mother has come over for a surprise visit, claiming loudly that she doesn't see you enough, so she decided to invite herself over. As you converse, she walks around your place and gets the distinct impression you're getting inspected. So what's been going on with you lately? She asks abruptly. Taken aback by this left fielder, you tell her you're not. Your reticence only seems to spur her on more. She presses you, asking if you're having problems at work or with Alex. You're beginning to feel increasingly battered by your sudden, well-meaning but overwhelming inquisition. Under her questions, you're becoming increasingly uncomfortable. You want to be able to explain to her how you've been feeling, but the truth is you're not really sure yourself. Nothing horrific has happened at work or with your girlfriend or friends or anything like that, but all the same you can't deny you've just been feeling drained and crappy lately. You wish you could tell your mother these things, but she hasn't been approachable about negative emotions in the past. She's the kind of person who holds the opinion that the solution to any problem is simply to try harder and maintain a positive attitude. My mother's like that. A stance that has reared its head in past conversations when you've begun to explore the subject with her. You know she's unlikely to be understanding, and you feel the energy drain out of you when you imagine what would happen if you managed to blurt out everything you're feeling. Try to be honest with her. That's what I generally am with my parents. You attempt to tell your mother how you're feeling despite initial misgivings that you have about doing so. Finding the right words feels like, for how you're feeling, feels like trying to untangle Christmas lights. I actually don't have that problem. She watches you intently and audibly sighs before you can clearly articulate anything. An attitude like that isn't going to get you anywhere. You need to work harder on getting what you want instead of sitting around feeling sad about it. Nothing good will happen unless you make it happen. Well, sometimes good things don't happen when you make them happen. She isn't angry or spiteful as she tells you this. You try to explain that it's not a matter of that, but you can tell that you're not getting anywhere. The frustration chokes the words in your throat, and you give up trying to push the subject further. You know she's giving you the advice that makes sense to her. No, not really. It's kind of narcissism. And generally wants the best for you. Not really. However, she doesn't understand that it's not as simple as somehow deciding to be positive or work harder. It's that these things aren't viable options because of these feelings. It's people don't understand it's often a physical illness. It's like telling a cancer patient, just try harder and your cancer will go away. You accept defeat and the conversation drifts for other subjects. She leaves after nagging you more and telling you to take better care of yourself. You sigh heavily as you close the door behind her, spending the next few hours lying in bed staring at the ceiling. You're idly clicking around online as your phone rings. Sam, a co-worker of yours that you're friendly with, asks how you are and makes hurried small talk with you. You typically only talk to him on the phone when one of you needs a shift covered, so it's slightly awkward. You're waiting in anticipation for him to ask you to come in on short notice when he veers the conversation in a completely different direction. How do you feel about cats? Mine had kittens a few weeks ago, and I'm having an awfully hard time finding a home for the last one in the litter. You don't have any pets, right? It takes you a moment to process this new information. You're caught off guard as he begins to earnestly try to sell you on the idea of taking the last kitten off his hands. It's not something you had specifically considered before, and he seems fairly insistent. She's a real sweetheart, really loves people. She's got all her shots already taken care of, and the vet said she's healthy as a horse. I can bring you over by your place tonight if you're interested. You look around your apartment and try to picture Cat in it, as he continues to tell you about how cute she is. You tell him that this is kind of all of a sudden you don't have anything for the kitten set up here. Oh, don't worry about that. I can bring over a litter box and food and all that since you'd really be helping me out of a fix. It's the least I could do. I just don't want to have to put her in a shelter. You can't help but feel like you're being guilt-tripped, but you decide to give it some serious consideration. It does get awfully lonely around your apartment, and you might feel less empty with the cat around. However, since, I don't know, cats are pretty low maintenance. I have a cat. I have an orange tabby cat. He isn't really much of a comfort just because he's a bastard who bites me when I try to pick him up, so I smack him. No, I don't smack him, I'm just joking. He's kind of a bastard. I do like cats. If I was living alone, I'd probably want a cat, so yes, become a cat owner. You accept the offer of the kitten and hang up shortly after making arrangements for when they can drop the cat off. After hanging up, you worry about if you suddenly taking on the responsibility that you can't handle, and hope you didn't make a small animal suffer for it. Cats don't really give a shit. They just sleep all day anyways. If you put out food and water for them and change their litter box, they're pretty happy. Okay, so you try to research a name. The evening rolls around and you hear a knock on the door, at your door, startling you out of reading Wikipedia entirely too hard. You take possession of a small, terrified black and white kitten in a carrier, along with everything you need to start taking care of her. You take her into your bedroom, close the door, and open the door to the carrier excitedly. She cowers in the back of it, and you back off, feeling slightly defeated. You remember what you researched on introducing a kitten to a new home and leaving her alone go to mess on your computer. Occasionally checking over your shoulder every so often to see if she has come out yet. She hides inside her carrier, periodically making sorrowful cat howls long enough for you to start worrying that she doesn't like you. But by the time you go to bed, she's curled up at the foot of it, eyeing you nervously before falling asleep. Over the next few days, you gain her trust and she begins affectionately following you around, sleeping on you, and hopping on you anytime you sit down to do some work. I wish my cat was that affectionate. He doesn't give a shit about me, and he bites me when I try to pick him up. It's late Friday afternoon, and quitting time is just around the corner. A bright, clear day is giving way to a still-tempered evening. You can hear your co-workers all around you, anxiously making plans for their evenings and weekends. But you're really looking forward to just going home and resting after what turned out to be a very long and taxing work week. Just before the end of your shift, you get a call from your girlfriend. It seems a group of your mutual friends are heading to a nearby pub for dinner and drinks to celebrate the end of the week, and they want to know if you'd like to come alone. You tentatively tell her that you're emotionally exhausted from the week, and a social outing like this would take to encourage her to go and have a good time, since you know that it's been a while since she's got out with friends. But the effort feels futile, since you know that she isn't going to go without you. A couple hours later, the two of you find yourself in a familiar position on the couch, a box of pizza open on the coffee table in front of you. As you look across the couch at her, you start to feel anxious. You feel bad about effectively forcing the two of you to stay in tonight. While you are always appreciative of your partner's efforts to take your feelings into account and help make sure you are comfortable, you sincerely worry that you're holding her back. While she does seem to enjoy spending time with you, as the two of you sit in comfortable, almost contented silence watching TV, your ever-increasing fear that your relationship is becoming one-sided weighs more and more heavily on you. You feel like you're a burden or a reward, and that it's virtually impossible for you to see what value you could possibly offer to her in return. Let's see here. You know, despite the bad times, your wow, they actually use girlfriend, sincerely loves you. Relationships are a two-way street, and you resolve to always be there for her like she's there for you. Tell Alex how important she is and to you, and enjoy your evening. So you can't make the smart calls. So I'm going to take the most proactive one I can, because I probably would ask about that. You look over at Alex, who hasn't noticed you're watching her yet, and try to parse the expression on her face. You worry that it's one of sheer boredom and bare tolerance. You wonder if she's thinking about all the fun things she could have been doing tonight if she wasn't trapped on this couch with you, ordering from one of the same 3 takeout places that you always order from. A sense of disappointing her creeps over you. I know this is a pretty boring Friday night for you. Are you really happy being with me, being like this? She turns to look at you, forehead wrinkled. Why do you ask me that so often? You feel her body stiffen and pull away from yours just a little. Well, I mean, you start, but are unable to try and think of an answer. Well, I mean, you start, but are unable to try to think of how to answer. It's probably silly, but it's reassuring when I hear that we're on the same page. I want to make sure I'm right for you. I know that it's not what you usually be up to. I don't know. So I sometimes worry that you're getting bored. I guess that. I just mean you usually like going out and doing things, partying and stuff. It's not like I want to do those things all the time. I like nights in too, just like everyone else. She turns to you in frustration wearing on her face. Sometimes I swear it feels like you don't know me at all. It's not that, your voice trails off. You notice that she has exasperated look on her face. You've seen this once or twice before. When you have conversations like this, conversations where you're poorly expressing your own self-doubt and insecurity, seeking reassurance, but really feeling like you're making things worse. I like spending time with you, okay? If I didn't, I wouldn't be here. The annoyed tone in her voice makes you think otherwise, but you take it as a sign that you'll probably drop it for now. You feel badly for upsetting things. You are deeply depressed. Even activities you used to enjoy hold little or no interest for you, and you existed in your constant state of lethargy. So that interaction just made me even more depressed. So my depression level has increased, kind of like your autism level has increased. It's a breezy Sunday afternoon. You've allowed Amanda, an old friend from school that is in town for the weekend, to talk you into leaving your house for coffee and catch up. You meet her in a small cafe and talk about what you've been up to since you've last seen each other. And you can't help but feel like they are a lot more accomplished and interesting than you are while listening to them talk about their life after school. Yep, I feel that way all the time. When it's your turn to brief them on your activities, you feel anxious and ashamed and give a very abbreviated version. You try to talk about your job as little as possible, and you feel incredibly boring while you describe it despite her expressing sincere interest in you and your life. I feel that way all the time. Sorry, I just was getting through that last part. It's something I don't have a lot of experience with. So I'll start putting in some more commentary. I feel like people are never interested in me. I don't like talking about myself. I do on YouTube, but that's kind of the purpose of YouTube. I've gotten better at it over time. I don't know. People just seem, and this is kind of the whole stigma thing, people don't seem to like it when you talk about how depressed you are or how shitty your life is. Well, that's your real feelings, so I guess you really just shouldn't ask a depressed person if you don't want to know. Amanda has known you long enough to read your mind and tone of voice. She leans in to ask a question while gently touching your hand, a look of genuine concern on her face. What's wrong? So what are the options? Suggest a change of location and confide in her honestly. Testing the waters and open up a little, hoping she'd understand. Now, I would actually be able to do those two. Insist that nothing is wrong and try to change the subject. That's not going to help. Defensively ask what she means by that. Notice your hands are shaking. I'm going to go with that one. It's such a small question, but it feels like a blow to the gut. You surprise yourself when you realize that your tightly clenched fists are now beginning to shake slightly. Despite your best efforts, you feel tears beginning to sting your eyes. You try to disguise this by tilting your head up and praying they'll suck back in. She just suggests that the two of you get out of there, and you feel mortified. She offers to go back to her apartment with you, but the two of you end up talking in her car for 2 hours as the words just pour forth from you. Amanda seems unsure of what to say at times, but she listens and rubs your back as you sob and talk. It really does help to get it out. It really does help to talk to someone. Even if it feels like you're not accomplishing anything, it's very good for you emotionally to get out and talk to someone and just let someone confide in you. It's why if I know people who are depressed, I always tell them that they can talk to me whenever they need to. Sometimes you just need to let it all out and cry. She asks you if you've gone to a doctor about this, and you admit that you haven't. She mentions that her mother is seeing a very good therapist in town and offers to ask her about it. You're not thrilled about the idea of going to a therapist, and even less thrilled that Amanda might be telling someone about your problems, but she persists and tells you she'll email you the doctor's contact information later in the week. It's a glaringly sunny Monday, and one of the 2 days that your brother Malcolm is in town and free long enough for the two of you to actually see each other. You have a dental appointment that day, but you make plans for him to pick you up afterwards. Your appointment takes longer than expected because your dentist tells you that you started grinding your teeth in your sleep to a worrying degree. Given how nearly everything in your life has been feeling enormous and stressful lately, this doesn't come as a big shock to you. He suggests you try to reduce your stress levels and fits you for a night guard. It feels awkward and too big for your mouth, and you feel embarrassed looking at your puffed off face in the mirror with it. You finish up the appointment in a hurry and leave about half an hour overdue for the meeting with your brother. You finish up as quickly as possible and leave the building to scan the parking lot for your brother's car, but you don't see his old Civic anywhere. You pass by a blue Camaro and jump as it beeps at you, causing you to jump in surprise. It takes you a moment to realize that it's Malcolm in the driver's seat. You hop in the passenger seat and compliment him on his new ride, and he mentions that it's a perk of a promotion he's recently obtained at work. He tells you about how much more money he's making, how his career is really taking off, and how he's starting to look at houses with his wife soon. Yep, that's how it feels. Life is just passing you by. You clutch the bag containing the night guard in your hand and feel yourself clench your teeth as you think of your crummy apartment. Well, he has an apartment. I mean, this is kind of unrealistic. I mean, this person has a girlfriend, he has some friends, he has an apartment. He's a lot better off than most people in this situation. How long has it been since you've been able to take a day off work without having to worry about making ends meet? He's only 2 years older than you, but it feels like he's eons ahead of you in every other aspect of your life. So he asks, how did your appointment go? Did you get drilled full of holes or what? A sense of shame creeps over you. Laugh about your dorky night guard with your brother. Tell him that the night guard and why you need it. Lie to him. Tell him it's a routine cleaning. Tell him about your tooth grinding problem, but not the stress causing it. I think honesty and confiding in people is the best policy. Oh, Malcolm replies, being stressed out lately, kiddo. Deciding you don't want to go into it, you tell him that you don't think that's the case and it's probably just a random thing. He doesn't pry, instead begins reminiscing about when you chipped a baby tooth badly because he accidentally knocked you over once. You go out for dinner and catch up on things, but you still feel slightly distracted by the gnawing anxiety in the back of your mind. Though you enjoy your brother's company, you still feel like you want nothing more than to go home and hide from the world tonight. It becomes hard for you to try to stuff all of your horrible feelings down and go emotionless when someone like the dentist can see a fraction of what goes on inside your head. It leaves you feeling embarrassed and weak, and you hate yourself for feeling this way. You wonder if you're really fooling anyone into thinking you're a normal person, and then you wonder if your brother knows and is hanging out with you out of pity tonight. After he drops you off at your apartment, you throw the night guard out. You can't even stand looking to look at the thing. Well, that's kind of irrational. It's a dry Sunday morning. You grab your morning coffee and scoot your rapidly growing kitten off your office chair despite her protest. Sit down at your desk and check your email. A new message pops up in your inbox almost as soon as you do. It's from Amanda, and you remember your meeting in the cafe and awkwardly bringing up your feelings to her. Subject: Hey buddy. Body: Sorry it's been a few weeks. I meant to get back to you sooner, but it took a while for me to get hold of my folks back home. Dad told me to say hi, by the way. Anyways, I remembered what we talked about last time I saw you, and I hope you aren't insulted, but I asked my mom for the number of her therapist. Don't worry, I didn't tell her who it was for. I think she's worried about me though, haha. Anyways, the number is etc. It's a really good office, you should look into it. If you're worried about money, don't be. They're one of the few that has a really good sliding scale fee system and won't charge you what you can't afford. I hope you're feeling better. It was really nice to see you again. It's still early enough that you could call and make an appointment today. Your kitten curls up in your lap as you consider what to do. Call the therapist's number. You're looking forward to the help you think you can get. Try your luck and call the number. Even if the mere thought of talking to she cared enough to send you this after all. I don't know. That's not an option, so I'm going to go with this. Sleep on it and see how you're feeling in the morning. You're not keen on the idea at all, but you don't want to disappoint Amanda. The thought of picking up the phone and calling someone about this right now is overwhelming. Sure, you're having a hard time lately and have motivation issues, but are you really in need of therapy? Shouldn't you be able to just get over it yourself? Well, if you could have, you would have already. What if they put you on medication that makes you feel like a zombie? Versus how you're feeling now, which is worse than being a zombie. What if you go and the therapist looks down on you? Well, what will your girlfriend think about this? Trying to think about all these things at once makes you feel like a very big deal, and you decide to take your time to think about it. The rest of the day passes quickly, and that night you have a hard time trying to sleep because your brain is too busy thinking about all these things, and imagining all the ways it could possibly go wrong. The next morning you check your email again, with blurry eyes and a mewing kitten. Amanda's email is still there, seemingly waiting for you. You are no more decided than you were yesterday. Call after wrestling it with a few moments longer. You read through Amanda's email 2 or 3 times, then sit and stare at your computer for a while the memory of that uncomfortable conversation makes you feel newly embarrassed and self-conscious. Part of you is also encouraged by the fact that she cared enough to get back to you at all. It does matter. When people show some concern for you, it does feel extremely awkward, and it is kind of painful, but it does help you a lot. You're starting to question things like whether or not Amanda sent you this number out of pity or perhaps out of some sense of obligation after having listened to you. You question her motives and the validity of her concerns and whether or not you think seeing a therapist would even be helpful. For some people it is helpful. For other people, particularly those who have a more biologically based mental illness, it's not often. Yet almost unconsciously you reach for the phone and begin to realize what's happening. You're listening to the therapist's line ring. Before you can bring yourself to hang up, you're listening to the slightly clinical but not unpleasant voice of the receptionist ask how she can help you. I'd like to make an appointment with the doctor, you manage to stammer out. The conversation is quick and not nearly as unpleasant as you were fearing, and quicker than you can say Freudian slip, you've scheduled an appointment. Quicker than you realize appointment day rolls around. What do? Head to the therapist's office, even though you're totally unsure of what to expect. Sit in your car terrified and try to talk yourself out of going. Just the thought of going back to your apartment, going to your appointment ties your stomach and knots you crawl back into bed. I'm going to head to the therapist's office, even though I don't know what's going to happen, because that's what I did. You have your first session with your new therapist, Dr. Susan Melville, a tall woman in her mid-40s with a disarming demeanor and patient eyes, with the start of the slightest smile lines. She begins to make you feel comfortable fairly easy, which is a pleasant surprise after all your anxiety over the appointment. As you leave, you make a second appointment. You're still skeptical about all this, but figure you might as well see where this goes. The hardest part, it seems, was taking the first step. You're not sure if and how you're going to tell your family or partner, but you figure you'll deal with that when time comes. Sorry, your girlfriend. Either way, you feel relieved that you managed to get to see this through instead of being paralyzed with worry over it. Even if nothing comes of it, you did something you said you would instead of flaking out or running away. You're emotionally exhausted when you get home and collapse into bed. You sleep better that night than you have in a week. You're not sure if it's because you're so tired when you got home or because of the therapist. Okay, you spent some time on the therapist's couch. You're having difficulty finding the motivation to continue going on your sessions. You are very depressed. You spend a large amount of time sleeping, hating yourself, and having little energy or motivation. Okay, so let's hit the next button. So I've gone up a level I've become less depressed, and I'm seeing a therapist now. It's early on a Wednesday morning. Lately, you've developed a nasty habit of waking up 10 to 20 minutes before your alarm rings, and unfortunately today is no exception. That happens to me a lot. You lay in bed, each minute taking closer and closer to wake up time and passing on a swelling wave of ever-encroaching dread. Sooner than you'd like, your alarm blares with caustic inevitability. You frantically pound the snooze button and then retreat under your blanket, alone going into work and having to force yourself through a work day. Not to mention you snooze so many times that it would be impossible to make it on time now anyways. Head into work. At least you can leave early if it gets too unbearable. You need the money. Okay guys, so I got myself some lemon and honey with hot water, which is the best thing, I find at least, if your throat gets sore. And it does get sore if you're recording for a long period of time. So, in spite of the fact that your body is actively fighting you literally every step of the way, you somehow manage to drag yourself out of bed and make your way into work. Surprisingly, you end up only being 5 minutes late and no one seems to notice or care. Yeah, no one gives a shit if you're that late. Though when you woke up this morning, the simple act of even being physically present in your job seemed like an impossibility. You are surprised at your own ability to push on through the day. While you are far from enjoying or indeed even really coping with the dullness of your job, you seem to have slipped into a trance-like state of automation, and time is nevertheless passing. Eventually the end of the day rolls around and you head home. Utterly exhausted, but at the same time almost proud of yourself for having stuck it out. You are depressed. Interaction is exhausting and you are becoming more and more withdrawn. So I've gone up another level on the depression scale, meaning I'm less depressed now. You are seeing a therapist even though you doubt anything she says could make you feel better. Next button. It's 2 a.m. on a Sunday and you have work in the morning. You roll over and see the sickly green glow of the time displayed on your LED clock and let out an exasperated sigh. You've been trying to fall asleep for 3 hours now to no avail. Every time your head hits the pillow, you're overcome with anxious thoughts that wrap themselves around each other. Worries about your job lead to worries about your future, lead to worries about your very identity. This happens to me almost every night. I'm phenomenally bad at sleeping. Although that's often, once again, my experience is a bit different because I'm bipolar as opposed to unipolar depression. Long enough to doze off. Your eyes won't even stay shut as your mind races through imagined scenarios going horribly wrong, which you promptly attribute to your general worthlessness. Your thoughts run too fast for you to come to a satisfying conclusion on any one of them. Your room is completely silent, but the silence has given way to a loud static noise rattling around inside your head. Your heart beats loudly and you worry it's beating a little too fast. You worry that if you focus too strongly on your racing heart, you'll freak yourself out hard enough that you'll have a heart attack. You have to be awake for work in a mere 8 hours. That's not... Really? When the hell does this guy go to work? Does he go to work for like 12 or something? And that you know you have to work is so much worse on only a few hours of sleep. In a mere 8 hours? That can't be right. 8 hours is more than I normally sleep. Okay, so I can't force myself to sleep. I can't go to bed. I can't just close my eyes and let it happen, snap out of it. So go to your computer. Sleep is clearly not happening, no matter how long you lay here. You get out of bed and head to your desk. Laying in bed with nothing but your thoughts to keep you company makes you feel like you are going insane. The harshness of the light coming from the screen makes you squint as you turn it on. Despite how often you find yourself in this exact situation, there have been so many nights like this lately, just like this. As you begin reading a news story, an online friend of yours IMs you. You're up late again, I see. Yeah, can't sleep. Again. Thinking too much again? Implying thinking. You guessed it, sad face. You end up talking with Atik for quite some time about how you've been feeling. He's always been easy to talk to about personal matters, and the added security of talking online helps. Being able to rethink what you say as you type it out and check it before you send it helps to gather your thoughts. You find it less intimidating a way to type it all into a prompt than to say it out loud. I don't want to be that guy who thinks they can diagnose something because I read a wiki article, but it sounds like you have depression. No shit. You should talk to someone about that. Like a doctor. You pause. Are you really that transparent? Or is it that you've gotten used to talking about your feelings at this point? Your insomnia makes you a little paranoid, but you shake it off. We can do some research and see if there's a good doctor near you. It's not like you're going back to sleep anytime soon. Might as well do something while you're awake. I don't have depression, but thank you for your concern. I guess, actually, I have talked to someone about it. Okay, you're taking that step. I've heard it's not an easy one. I know people kind of suck at understanding this sort of stuff sometimes, but there's nothing wrong with having depression. You wouldn't be ashamed to have bronchitis or something, so there's no reason to be ashamed if your brain that's sick instead. You spend a few more minutes talking to Attic about your feelings. He's very supportive, and you're happy to find that you have a confidant that understands you and is willing to lend an ear. A little while later, you go back to bed and manage to sleep. It's good to know that you have a friend who will help you carry through this. It's a chilly Thursday and you've just gotten off of work. This has felt like one of the longest days you've faced in recent memory. Even though nothing exceptional has happened, a ton of minor things kept going wrong, and coworkers had tried your patience throughout the day. You considered leaving work early, but the last thing you wanted to do was deal with your insufferable boss on top of everything else. You're lost in thought on that commute home, and your feelings of frustration, both your life and the world around you, build as you run into minor annoyances, like someone bumping into you really hard as they walk by. By the time you get home, you're exhausted. Remember, these feelings were ones you identified as negative feedback loop with your therapist. These pent-up feelings aren't dying down and are eating at you. You open your front door and stare at your apartment. An overwhelming feeling of exhaustion overcomes you, and you feel like your energy levels are low enough that you're likely to settle into a single activity tonight. Reach out to someone close to you. Your head feels too noisy, and you need to trade it for some actual conversation. Your therapist did say it's important to reach out to your support network, so you might as well give it a shot. Who do you call? I'm gonna go with my girlfriend because she kind of feels like she wants to be kept in a loop, and she kind of seemed to me like she wanted to understand you better. You dial Alex, who picks up after only 2 rings. You ask if she has time to talk, and she tells you she's just hanging around in her PJs and is actually somewhat bored for once due to being caught up on her coursework. You try to figure out where to start with how you're feeling and are overcome with missing her face. You ask if she feels like grabbing some dinner, and you notice her barely contained surprise and delight on the other end of the line. You meet about half an hour later at an inexpensive diner not far from your apartment. While the food is not great, you're surprised by how much your mood seems to have elevated just by being in her company. Well, at first you're extremely hesitant to talk about your job situation for fear of being burdensome or sounding like a whiner. You see her listening intently to you with what even to you seems to be genuine concern. After winding down with beer, you cautiously open up a little bit more about your feelings surrounding your job and how drained it leaves you feeling. How you feel like you're simply existing, selling days of your life for no real purpose. You surprise even yourself when you start talking about how frustrated and stymied you feel by your job, about how you used to feel passionately about things, but you feel like all your energy and capacity for creativity is getting leached out of you each and every day. You can't remember how long it's been since you externalized this much raw emotion. The two of you spend several hours in that dinner booth long after your Eaten food was cleared and the waitress stopped refilling your coffee cups. As you get up to leave, a sudden wave of self-consciousness washes over you and you feel incredibly awkward. Then Alex stands up and grabs you tightly around the waist. You realize that short of boring her with your seemingly endless rant, she's simply happy to have gotten a chance to spend real time with you. It's been, by all accounts, incredibly too long since you've allowed yourself to open up to them like this, and there's an almost palpable feeling of closeness you allow yourself to hold as you go to bed that night. It's an utterly nondescript Wednesday afternoon, the type of afternoon that would completely fade from memory unless one made an active effort to preserve it. As has become routine on Wednesdays, you are sitting down on the couch at Dr. Melville's office. To your mild surprise, she begins the session by breaking her characteristic therapist silence and begins speaking up right away. I want to start by saying that I think it's great you decided to come see me today. It's an incredibly important first step, she begins. I wanted to take some time today to talk to you about the possibility of supplementing or substituting your treatment with medication. The mention of medication makes your ears perk up and you feel your heart rate increasing as she continues. Many people find adding a pharmacological element to their treatment to be very helpful. And some even prefer to take drugs, completely eliminating their need to visit a therapist at all, providing you rely on your support network and are still reaching out to people. I would prefer it if we kept talking, should you choose to start medication, so that I can monitor your progress and adjust as needed, but the choice is ultimately yours. I just want to run the option by you and gauge your thoughts on what the matter might be. Ask for a prescription as a way to augment your therapy. Well, you can afford it, so I might as well keep going with the therapy. You think the matter long and hard. It's strange to think that recently none of this sort of thing was even on your radar, and here you are being asked to make a decision about it. It's good, honey lemon. You're both skeptical and nervous, still getting over the initial shock of even just talking to a therapist. Still, over the years, you've done enough entry-level reading on the subject to know, if it doesn't help, at least it probably won't hurt. After an intense and protracted period of internal vacillation, you decide to bite the bullet and go for it. You tell Dr. Melville you'd like to try medication in addition to your therapy, and spend half an hour going over what you'll be taking and what you should expect from it. Thinking back on the decision later, you had your fists tightly clenched the whole way through. So I'm still pretty depressed. You're seeing a therapist even though you doubt anything to see will make it feel better. And I've just started taking medication. It's Wednesday evening and you're visiting at your parents' house for a holiday. It's one of the handful of times during the year that you drive out to visit your old hometown, and you've seen random people you had gone to school with around town. Whenever bumping into them, the usual short versions of what you had done since graduating are exchanged. You've gone through a few of these today and have been aware very much how you haven't accomplished much, how your larger plans have fallen away, and that you've increasingly lost interest in what you want to do growing up. Now you're not really sure what you want to do. Yep, that's frequently what I run into. You felt like you're lacking the ambition or drive to figure it out. Everyone you've caught up with seems so much happier than you, like they've got their lives all figured out, and you've kind of been feeling like a failure by comparison. Your brother Malcolm arrives with his wife in tow shortly before you all sit down to dinner. He's been traveling for his job lately, and you haven't seen him since the day he picked you up from the dentist. Your parents haven't seen him since before then. During dinner, they all catch up, and Malcolm talks about the amazing things he's done on the road. Your mother makes a face. How long are you planning on staying in that job of yours? What do you say? Let's be honest. Admit I don't know what to do. I'm not really sure what I wanted to do right now. Your mother puts down her Fork. So what you're planning on living that way, you do for the rest of your life? How would you afford a house on the paycheck? What about kids? Your father interrupts. It's okay, Linda. Let the kids be what they are. There's nothing wrong with not knowing what you want to do in your 20s. I didn't get into construction until I was nearly 40. Your mother looks across the table at you, unsatisfied with her husband's reasoning. I don't think it's normal for someone that age to not have a path. You need to think hard about it, or you'll never make anything about yourself. Never make anything of yourself. You. Mom, come on, Malcolm interjects. This emotionally exhausts you. You want to tell her that you are thinking hard, and that not knowing what you're doing really bothers you. That you feel lost, and that you're like an alien that doesn't really understand the external world. Okay, instead, you get very quiet for the rest of the meal while your mind goes numb. Everything inside you feels exhausted. Though your pace is quick, the rain is steadily soaking up your pant legs as you traverse the town, and it's darkening your already poor mood. The call came while you were at home the day after dealing with abnormally frustrating people. You spent the afternoon trying to unwind to get some of your work on your project done. Alex called and interrupted one of your try to make progress, get frustrated at not making progress, having a harder time making progress due to frustration and repeat loops. You haven't fully shaken off the feeling of being annoyed with yourself from it yet. You knock on the door. As you cross the threshold, dripping rainwater all the way, you notice that the lights are turned down very low in the apartment. You squint to navigate it as you clutch on your damp umbrella, but end up hitting the shin on a side table. Did you save? No, just like life. Why don't you come in and warm up, she asks in her designated, slightly cheesy, sexy voice. After a beat of silence, she states more naturally, my roommates are out of town this weekend, so I thought it would be nice to have a little fun while they're away. Let go of your stress and be intimate with your girlfriend. Try to unwind with her before getting physical. That sounds good. I personally probably just wouldn't get physical at all. That's personally. But let's just, I don't know. If you outright reject her, it'll make her sad and feel unwanted. So try to unwind before getting physical. You look at her standing barely lit and notice there's a few candles scattered about the apartment. It occurs to you she has tried to make this night special for the two of you, even though you have a tight knot of antisocial frustration in your stomach. Seeing how much she cares about you makes it all melt away. So you can show her how much you care that she's gone through the trouble. However, you desperately need to shift gears before that's even impossible. You look amazing. Let's have a drink together, you suggest, hoping this will give you the push you need to get into the mood. You go into the kitchen, pour the drinks, you sit down on the couch next to her, and she cuddles up to you instantly. What should we toast to? She asks as she takes her drink. You think for one, passing up the cheesy to us option, you say what's on your mind, letting go of your bad day. To tonight. The two of you cheers. You ask her about her day. Conversation turns flirtatious, and the two of you find yourself in the bedroom shortly after. You find you're having trouble getting into things physically with her, and remember that diminished arousal was a possible side effect of your medication. You hoped that you were part of the population that wasn't affected by it, but it seems as though that was not the case. However, you're able to enjoy the closeness with Alex and fall asleep together happily. It's an early winter evening, and even though it's not particularly late, the time of year has lent the sky an almost prematurely darkened cast. Day after day, just like today, you trudge home from a job you have increasingly come to hate. On this day, your job misery seems to have reached critical mass, and not even shedding your rain-laden, uncomfortable work clothes helps you to unwind from your workday. You collapse into your couch, blank and numb. While your job has always seemed to be just an unpleasant reality of existence, it was a position you fell into unexpectedly, never intending to work there long term, and it's getting it harder and harder to keep it up. Let's see here. Well, it's certainly not your dream job. You've always just sort of stuck it out of necessity before, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to do just that. Though you couldn't even begin to imagine where else you go, you find yourself face to face with a question you just can't ignore. Is your complacency worth this level of misery? So I'm too depressed to get proactive. Aimlessly look for classifieds for another job. Try to be productive by focusing your efforts on your project tonight. You sit down your computer to blow some steam, but are surprised to find yourselves drifting to your not long neglected project. You talk yourself into opening it up and taking a look for the first time in what must be weeks. You find your anger has been converted into pure passion and you're overflowing with ideas tonight. It's as if you have a buildup of ideas that you just haven't got into, and now you're in the zone. While you don't get an unnatural amount of work done, you do get some work done, and it feels really great. What's more, you share some stuff across your social media networks and receive quite a bit of positive feedback, which makes you feel great. When you go that's a spelling error. When you go to bed that night, you can tell yourself that your job may suck, but at least you're accomplishing something you really care about, that you can put effort into and feel really good about yourself. In fact, as you're falling asleep, you can barely even remember your work day. You're moderately depressed. You find it hard to focus on anything because you get physically and mentally exhausted very quickly. Okay, so I've gone up a level. That's good. I'm less depressed now. The therapy seems to be helping. You're doing cognitive behavioral therapy that's helping. Your medication is helping to keep the edge off, and some of the darker, more negative feedback loops from being as prevalent. So things are going good. It's a little past 8 p.m. on a Tuesday night. You're at your computer, frustration levels peaked, rubbing your eyes and sighing heavily. You're working on a project from your job that has you stretched to wit's end, trying to meet a looming deadline. You're dragging your feet a little at work due to your complete lack of energy lately. In spite of wanting to do a good job, you find yourself unable to push past it and feel horribly useless for it. You slide your hands off your face to look at your screen as it beeps at you. Hey, are you there? I really need to talk to someone about something. You feel like you're getting nowhere with your current task and could possibly use a break. However, you know you have a history of getting distracted and losing motivation to pick up something back up again afterwards. Attic helped me, and he's a friend, and he comes first. Other than my shitty job. Fuck them. Let's see here. Hey, what's up? Oh, good, you're there. I just found out I had gotten cheated on. I don't know what to do. Oh no, that's horrible. The two of you talk for a long time. You lend a shoulder to your friend. You give him space to rant, to cry, and most importantly, to be able to voice his inner turmoil. You give him your full attention and talk him through what his options are for what he does next. You keep him from doing anything rash, and the two of you decide it's best for him to sleep on it before doing anything. Exhausted, he departs from bed and thanks you for being there for him. As you close the IM window, you feel horribly sorry for your friend, but happy that you were able to help. It serves as a tangible reminder to you that you are capable of being useful to someone instead of solely being a mess that needs everyone else's help. You boot up your work project and feel you're suddenly able to get some solid progress done that night. Hasn't changed. It's a sunny Saturday afternoon. You're deep in thought on the way home from therapy. However, you notice this time that you're not in the same negative feedback loop that you usually get trapped in while being this introspective. realize that, that's good, honey lemon, that although you still have your bad days, your lows aren't quite as low as they used to be. Your antidepressant bottle rolls across your dashboard as you make a left turn. You've been on this medication for quite a while now. After a period of trying a few different kinds, though you still have minor side effects, overall they're becoming an unnoticed part of your life. You feel as if your life has generally changed for the better recently, and you begin to wonder if you still need them. You don't feel as much despair or hopelessness, and you hate yourself a lot less these days. Maybe it's time to stop taking these. I don't really seem to need them anymore. No, you continue to take your meds. If you go off your meds when you start to feel better, then you feel shitty again. Because you're feeling better because of said meds. Continue to take your meds. You come to the realization that you can't be sure if it's a general life change that's making you feel better, or if it's just a sign that the medication is working. You decide against discontinuing your meds. It's not really a lesson you'd like to learn the hard way, and the side effects of this particular kind are negligible. The next time you see Dr. Melville, you tell her about this. She informs you that it is a common train of thought of people who have begun using medication to help them manage their depression experience, and that you've managed to dodge a bullet because it generally ends poorly. She also asks you to talk to her first before making any decisions regarding your medication later. Okay, let's see here. You're at Alex's apartment, wide awake in bed as she's sleeping peacefully beside you. She fell asleep hours ago, and you've been lying here unable to shut off your brain long enough to sleep. You've added the feelings of insecurity about your relationship to the rest of the noise in your head, keeping you up tonight. It was a tense night between the two of you. You arrived after a stressful day at work, and as you made dinner together, you barely said a word. You were stuck in your own head and had a hard time really being present with her as your thoughts turned to all the ways you feel like you're deficient at being a good person and beating yourself up mentally for each one. She told you she could see you were in one of your moods, but missed talking to you as the two of you sat on the couch together. You wanted to tell her how much you love her, but you couldn't make the words come out right. It ended up sounding defensive instead. As you lay there next to her, you trace your fingers on her arm, vacation, and it's starting to feel more and more like a secret to you. You're keeping instead of something she simply doesn't know about you yet. It's becoming more and more apparent that it's impacting your relationship with her, and you feel guilty about this. However, you're also terrified that if she knew exactly how fucked up you are, that she would leave you. You already worry that she's only with you because she doesn't realize how terrible a person you are yet, and you're afraid that this would be the final thing to expose you. She stirs in her sleep and squints as she opens her eyes. With confusion that comes with waking up, she asks you if you're awake and that everything's okay. Well, let's see here. Well, Alex has traditionally, if I can understand her personality, she generally speaking likes it when you open up to her, even if it is negative. She seems to genuinely love you and want you to be happy. So I'm going to tell her about my situation. You feel like a jerk for accidentally waking her up, but you're afraid if you put this off any longer, you won't find the strength to tell her everything later. No, actually, everything isn't okay. Can I tell you something important? I tell her. Alex sits up, rubbing the sleep out of her eyes. For the rest of the night, you lay side by side, holding hands as you tell her everything. You tell her that it's more than just feeling sad sometimes, how you're trapped by your own mind sometimes, how sometimes you feel nothing at all, how you can't shake it off. You tell her how you've started going to therapy, how you feel embarrassed about it, and how it's working out for you. She listens the entire time, asking questions about this or that, how this or that works. As you explain something further, she squeezes your hand and tells you she understands, and that she's sad you didn't tell her sooner. After laying silently for a moment, the weight of what you did hits you. You desperately want her to say something, to tell you how she's feeling about all of this, but you're too afraid of what the answer would be to ask. You start convincing yourself that now that she knows everything, she's going to leave, that there's no way someone could deal with how you really are. So how can I help? What you need me to do? What do you need me to do, she asks. You think for a second, the answer you come up with fills you with despair. I honestly don't know. I wish I knew how to fix this, but I don't know that you can do anything. I think it's just something I have to live with. Then she kisses you in the forehead and says, I'll live with it with you. I don't know how you could possibly love me. She rolls over and wraps her arms around my neck, settling her head on top of yours. You don't need to know. Just know that I do. So let's see here. You are definitely still depressed, but things are getting better. Whatever you're doing seems to be working. You really feel like you're taking steps to positively change your life. You now seem to enjoy your therapist. Between giving you a chance to talk things out and your CBT techniques she shares with you, you find your sessions extremely helpful. You have been regularly taking your medication, and while you were first skeptical, it's hard to argue with the fact that you're feeling better than you have in a long time. As it's a Friday night and you leave laying across your bed feeling pathetic. As you were leaving work tonight, a group of coworkers asked if you wanted to join them for drinks. Feeling social and put on the spot, you declined. You have a habit of doing this. You're often so convinced that you are weird and terrible that any invitation to hang out will end in disappointment for those inviting you. You never feel like you know how to act in group outings, and you feel like a total creep since it seems to come so naturally to anyone who isn't you. You feel yourself petrified of breaking down some unknown social rule, but you often don't go out. Now, however, you find yourself alone at home. Your brain has begun to tell you how pathetic and sad you are. You can't figure out why you can't just go out and meet people and enjoy yourself. At the same time, you also feel like no one would possibly want you to hang out. You try your typical strategy. Let's see here. See if Attic is online. Call Alex. Drink. I just saw Alex and she seems to be okay, so I'll see if Attic's okay. You sit down at your computer and open the chat client. Attic is indeed online, and the two of you catch up briefly before you start passing links to news stories and weird YouTube videos back and forth. Eventually he asks if you'd like to play a multiplayer game with him, and you start the download. Realize you haven't eaten yet, and you make yourself dinner. Several hours more than you had expected had passed, and you only just realized it. Though it's not going out to a bar with people, you feel like it has taken the edge off the loneliness you're experiencing later. Even though he's an internet friend, sometimes when you are too down to be social, he's the perfect person to talk to. You connect with him on a meaningful level, and you found it easier to be yourself while talking to him than you do in most face-to-face social interactions. When you're down, you find yourself using this as another reason to feel like a loser, as though you could only make friends if they didn't have to deal with you in person, but for now you're relieved to be around him. It's a cold Saturday afternoon. You just arrived at Alex's apartment, and you're finally happy to see her after a week of absence due to your schedules not lining up to work and school. You hug her in the doorway, but she breaks away sooner than normal and sits down at the couch as you take off your sneakers and land the usual place right next to hers. There's something I was hoping we could talk about, actually, she says. You instantly worry that you're being blindsided by a breakup conversation due to the sudden shift in tone, but she smiles at you and puts you at ease when she sees all the color leave your face. It's nothing bad, I promise you. With that, she leads you over to the couch and you both sit down. So I hope this doesn't freak you out, and if you feel like things are going too fast, just tell me. She talks faster than usual and fidgets. We seem to have a lot of weeks like this, and they really suck. I was thinking I'd ask, since things are so strong with us, what are your thoughts about moving in together? It takes a few seconds to sink in and leaves you a bit shocked when it does. You were worried that she wanted to spend less time with you, not more. Do you want to, you asked? Well, yes, I do. I mean, we'd have to sort out the logistics and everything, but those are all the things we can take care of. Let's see, what is depression like? You start to walk through the steps of imagining the two of you living together. You love the thought of being able to wake up next to her every day and seeing her so often. However, the more you picture it, the more a few concerns become apparent. There are things she is insulated from, like the days you don't feel like you can even get out of bed, the nights your medication keeps you from being able to sleep, all those moments you're stuck staring at the wall, completely out of energy and feeling nothing. How would she handle this? How quickly would she want to get away? So she starts, what do you think? Tell her you want to, but you have concerns, and discuss them honestly. That sounds good to me. You are really... You were really worried that if Alex were to live with you, she wouldn't be able to deal with her days of being unable to get out of bed or nights where you can do nothing but stare at the wall and panic. Even though you've discussed your situation with her, you still fear that she doesn't realize the depths of how bad it gets. It's one thing for you to detail how you feel sometimes, and for her to see it pop up occasionally. It's an entirely different situation for it to be something she has to live with alongside you. That seems perfectly rational. Well, I'd like to, but I think it's best if we talk about it a bit more before coming to a decision. Though she seems a little defeated, you make it clear that you're not making excuses and you actually want to talk. You reiterate a lot of what you've told Alex that night, and although she gets a little defensive and tells you she knows all of that already, she confirms that she is willing to help you sort through your issues. I feel like you forget I love you sometimes. I know that there will be bad days, and I'd rather try to work through them with you. We can figure this all out together. Her words sway you, and you can't help but hold her close to you. You're doing well. You may still have your bad days, but you now have effective ways to deal with them, and you don't get nearly as low as you used to, or for as long. You still regularly visit your therapist, and even she has remarked at how much more alive you seem lately. You're taking your medication regularly, and I'm pleased at how well it seems to be working. It's December, and you've returned to your parents' house to celebrate the holidays with your family. Out the living room window, you can see a gentle flurry of snow drifting down to meet the pristine blanket of white from yesterday's unexpected Christmas Eve snowfall, and you quietly laughed yourself how incredible cliché it seems. Still, as you sit down to dinner, you can't help but notice how being surrounded by family and the overly kitschy atmosphere of your mother's Christmas decorations have actually made you feel relaxed and almost comfortable. Your mother is running around frantically, checking the oven and the stockings, and just generally trying to family time it up, while your dad sits at the head of the table, drinking a beer and laughing with your brother Malcolm. His wife Karen is there, too, with whom you've always gotten along with well. And your parents even agreed to let you bring your kitten along. She's been darting in and out of people's legs, hopping laps all night. As you thoughtfully munch away your turkey, listening to the conversations around you, your thoughts drift back over the last few months. You think about how hard things had gone, replaying over in your head some of the worst, as well as some of your best memories. It seems like all of these things just came to a head over the past few months, with a sudden flurry of relationship turmoil and professional anxiety, social stress, and above all, an omnipresent sense of weight that seems you have just recently become aware of. You're drawn out of your reverie by your dad's familiar booming laugh at some cheesy comment Malcolm made. It seems to have hit its mark. Sitting at that table, you're suddenly immensely glad for the chance to be able to ignore everything for an evening and not to have to struggle trying to explain yourself for once. Fortunately, everyone seems to be content with laughing at each other's jokes and discussing favorite sports teams, and for a while you think you'll be able to get through dinner without any embarrassing personal intrusions. But no sooner did the thought cross your mind than the table conversation trickles off, leaving a slightly awkward silence to descend upon dinner. "So how are you doing these days?" your mom asks pointedly. It's a simple question, and one that you seem to have had to answer countless times recently. You take a moment to collect your thoughts, then looking up you take a deep breath. You've never really thought of yourself as much of a fighter, and even to say it now sounds hokey, but looking back on the past few months to where you are now, it really does feel like you've endured an immense struggle. and you look at where you are now with a sense of something that isn't quite pride. You still hate your job and find it unpleasant, but you're surprised to find that going into work every day is no longer a monumental challenge. You started adopting some clever techniques like taking a short 2-minute break every hour to break up the monotony. And now you view your job as just 8 short hours of your day, a compartmentalization technique Dr. Melville told you about, that you found actually works quite well. You know that this job isn't what you want to do for the rest of your life, and you started actively looking for other positions, even attending a couple of preliminary interviews. You started making efforts to go out with your friends more. While the social scene still makes you uncomfortable sometimes, you're more and more able to let yourself just enjoy the company of your friends. In fact, your relationship with many of them has increased over the past little while. You still definitely have days where you flake out or don't feel like hanging out, but for the most part your friends are understanding and appreciate your communication. By far the biggest change you've noticed in your life has been in your relationship with Alex. You were terrified of talking to her about everything at first, but looking back, you feel like it's only strengthened your relationship. She's more supportive of you emotionally, and the two of you have been even more in sync. And it's really starting to feel like you're building a life together. It even seems like the two of you have been making a much more concerted effort to sync up your schedules, and she has been spending more and more of your downtime, and you have been spending more and more of your downtime with each other. Pretty soon you think moving in together may be a very real possibility. Dr. Melville has commented on how well you seem to be doing, and whether a result of the therapy, the medication, or both, you can't help but agree. With all that seems to improve recently, it's sometimes difficult for you to think about the fact that you still have bad days, sometimes even really bad days, that serve as a stark reminder of the fact that this will be something you will likely have to deal with for the rest of your life. Depression is a battle, and though you're certainly ahead in the fight, you know the battle isn't going to be over. Sometimes even Alex can tell when things are going rough, despite your best efforts to the contrary. While you know that your depression can never be cleared, you have a strong support network in your friends and even Malcolm, and armed with newfound confidence in your friends and family, you accept that though the road may be rocky, it is at the very least not solitary. You meet your mom's gaze from across the table and muster up a smile. "I'm good, Mom," you tell her. She says nothing, but you can feel her smile from across the room. Epilogue. We really want to thank you for taking the time to play Depression Quest. We realize it may not be the most enjoyable game you've ever played, or even the easiest, and we sincerely appreciate your involvement. Like depression itself, Depression Quest does not really have an end. There is no neat resolution to the depression, and it was important to us that Depression Quest's own resolution reflect that. Instead of a tidy ending, we wanted to just provide a series of outlooks to take moving forward. After all, that's all we can really do with depression. Just keep moving forward, and at the end of the day, it's our outlook and support from people just like you that make all the difference in the world. Thanks again. Credits. Let's see here. Well, that's the end of Depression Quest. I'm going to do a review next. Just going to cancel and restart this. So, I just finished Depression Quest. I did the whole game in one sitting. It was pretty short. So, what did I think about it? I liked it. I thought it was good. I thought it was just the right length. I thought the writing was good. They did a good mixture of vagueness and specificness. They made it generally applicable to most people's situations, while at the same time not really skimping over detail. I think they described the experience of being depressed pretty well. Maybe not extreme depression. I guess that's kind of my criticism, is that this game is overly optimistic. It assumes you have a job and can afford an apartment, which I know where I live in Toronto, that's impossible. You cannot afford an apartment on minimum wage, even a basement one. The fact that you have a job and you're young is very... it's unrelatable to me, because most of the people I know who have depression can't find work. Partially because of the depression, but mostly because of the economy. So I guess it's kind of unrealistic in that point. It's also, I don't understand where you have a girlfriend from. If you have that much social anxiety, etc., it seems weird to me that you just magically kind of have this girlfriend who loves you. I mean, it's nice and everything, but it's really I don't know, it's kind of unrealistic. I find things in this game just happen to, like, nice things happen to in this game more than they do in real life. So while I think it described the experience of being depressed very well, and it described your background very well, and kind of the steps you take to resolve depression well, I find it extremely optimistic and kind of idealized version of recovering from depression. I don't think it's this easy or this straightforward for most people. I don't think people's lives are, generally speaking, that good when they're on depression. Overall, though, it's a fun, short game that I highly recommend. They say it's not supposed to be fun, but I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was fascinating. And I highly recommend it. I forget if it costs money or if it's free on Steam, but I will admit I actually do feel a lot better. If you listen to this, I did this on one sitting. You might notice that I got a bit more animated as time went on. This is kind of therapeutic. I do feel better. I feel less alone. I feel like more people have the problem, etc. I mean, the guy, as much as I say they idealized it, the guy's still stuck at his shitty job and he still has problems. His life didn't immediately get great. There's still a lot of problems with it, but he's just advancing, and I guess that's all you can really do when you're depressed. Just try to keep moving forward. Try to keep trying to build a better life for yourself. And ultimately, that's the quest of depression, is not so much to win, but to just keep fighting and to not give up. I enjoy the game. I highly recommend it. Check it out on Steam. This is Argent Templar, signing in.